Kizumonogatari is a three-part film that has what could only be one of the most unconventional approaches to animation that you'll ever see in an anime film. But due to its unusual approach, it is able to craft cinematic moments that immerses you in the movie's suspense, beauty, warmth, and humor. Although the real question is, what is the number one thing that sets this film apart from every other anime ever made? The answer is the movie's use of visual emptiness to reinforce each and every scene's atmosphere, allowing the audience to be absorbed within the narrative and its characters. Which leads us to the most radical quirk that this anime has to offer, and that is its completely lifeless landscape. You see, throughout the entire duration of this film, you will never find a single character that inhabits the backdrop of any scene except our small cast of characters. There might be an occasional car that passes by, but beyond that, the environments are completely devoid of people. It's like you are stepping into a surreal urban painting only to feel like you're slowly getting lost in it. But because it's so empty, it uses that to focus down on the characters' movements and expressions, so when they appear on screen, their presence becomes even more so intensified. Because while the landscape sets the stage, the characters naturally become its actors. Here is one of the best scenes that embodies this. One of the earlier shots of the film features our main character Araragi heading down a subway station ready to get home, when all of a sudden he notices a trail of blood that leads deeper underground. He walks and walks along the blood-stained floor where he comes across a massive amount of gore smeared against a wall. Araragi's pace now becomes a little faster. You witness the unease in his movements and expressions, the fear crawling on his face. It's as if his conscience is driving him out of his own will to answer this silent cry for help, and amongst all this, not a single living soul is in sight, until he finally finds what lies at the end of the blood trail. A woman with all four of her limbs missing from her body, lying there on the ground helplessly, whilst Araragi stares and gasps in disbelief at what he's seeing, wishing he could just run away from this reality. Such a well-executed scene, isn't it? By removing every unnecessary element of the backdrop and only leaving a trail of blood on the ground, the visuals alone can already create a lot of suspense without using any spoken words whatsoever, since it acts as an element that foreshadows something darker ahead. But what makes this a hell of a lot more suspenseful is our protagonist's emotions and body language, conveying his fear and distress, all non-verbally building tension in the viewer, as Araragi walks through this never-ending maze of hallways and stairs just to be led to a horrifying sight. All of this made possible through visual emptiness. But when the movie wants to flip the script and try to instill a sense of warmth and lightheartedness into the viewer, it can very well do that. And such is the case with the film's opening shot, where we see both of our main characters Araragi and Hanekawa meet for the first time. Although it starts off pretty awkwardly, we see both of them beginning to partake in this friendly back and forth conversation of opinions, ideals, and bantering. Araragi being this loner who is reclusive towards everyone around him, while Hanekawa attempts to reel him out of it. Different personalities coming from completely opposite worlds, wittily sharing their own unique perspectives. And what better way to showcase it than to have the film double down and make them feel like they're the only two people in the world. That way there's this sense of sincerity and privacy in their interaction, thus creating the perfect atmosphere for both of our characters to just be themselves. But you will also notice how the film emphasizes the environment around them, keeping it very visually quiet and still, allowing the audience more time to absorb the dialogue between them, consequently increasing our immersion in both Araragi's and Hanekawa's personality. But this quote-unquote visual emptiness is not just a weird quirk that the film embraces, but rather it is an effect that is intentionally achieved. Kizumonogatari features many different types of scenic backdrops, and they do use an extreme amount of space and emptiness. But the trick that they pulled here is that it was never designed to make the character feel small nor insignificant, because what if I were to tell you that the backdrop can actually make them feel much more important? Think about every scene that you have witnessed so far and just remember how your eyes travel across the screen. 10 times out of 10, your eyes will wander around to absorb the background itself, although very quickly. But also 10 times out of 10, it will always return to the one subject that moves alongside it, aka our characters. So when you apply this effect to visually tell a story, well, the results just speak for itself. And it is something you very much get to see in one of the film's most beautiful shots. Here, Araragi and Hanekawa meet up at this wide expanse of sunlit grass as they begin to just run around the field playfully while in laughter, without a single care in the world. A moment in the anime story that signifies growth, closeness, joy, and human connection. And while this picturesque landscape sits in the background, you can just see both of them chatting with each other. A very simple moment of two people valuing each other's presence and vocalizing why they do so. It's such a beautifully curated scene that is highlighted by meaningful dialogue between both of them, offering you a glimpse into what kind of person Araragi and Hanekawa are. But one very important thing to note is that Kizumonogatari as a whole is a very dialogue-intensive film, really exposition-heavy. Although this film does feature action sequences, it doesn't use all its skill points on it, but rather on storytelling and character writing. So having an empty world that is designed to not take the spotlight away from the characters and what they say, but rather to focus down on them is such a genius direction choice if you think about it. Here is a perfect example of this. In another opening scene, we get to see Araragi just flipping through a book when he is all of a sudden met with Hanekawa's presence. But this time, instead of a seemingly calm conversation, this unforeseen meetup starts to transcend into a hilarious back and forth between them. Although the catch is, instead of creating feelings of suspense or warmth, we now get to experience more of the film's ability to create humor, which is done very well by the dialogue between our two characters. But the way that visual emptiness works here is that it gives Araragi and Hanekawa the spotlight to execute their jokes, kind of like a comedian who has an entire stage to themselves. And just like a comedian, they have control over what we the audience will feel. After all, our focus is entirely on them and nobody else, turning Araragi and Hanekawa's trivial conversation into an amusing exchange of jokes, wit, and antics. But beyond how the backdrop acts as a tool to intensify character moments and emotional storytelling, another yet unconventional trait this film has is how it loves to animate two-dimensional characters within a three-dimensional space. Whether it be an ordinary scene of Araragi just sitting in his bedroom or a more scenic shot of Hanekawa walking around the city under the pouring rain, the backdrop always stands differently from the characters in terms of dimension, since they are given this nearly lifelike design, sometimes accentuated by reflective surfaces. But surprisingly, this never actually causes distortion for either, since characters are animated so well that they ultimately blend into whatever environment they stand on. But these three-dimensional environments is also what gives life to one of the coolest traits of Kizumonogatari. It's surrealism. Although what does surrealism actually mean? Well, it is defined as an approach to art that challenges reality by depicting dreamlike scenes that embraces the irrational. Sometimes these can be in the form of endless, maze-like landscapes or absurdly built structures, which is something the anime absolutely excels in. Whether it be an abandoned school building with many branching paths, expansive hallways in environments as far as the eye can see, an urban landscape furnished with bizarre, oddball features, Kizumonogatari loves to jog your imagination by creating places you'll never get to see in real life, which is what surrealism does, to completely contrast what is real, so to embrace the absurd, turning supposedly mundane settings into strange yet mesmerizing places. And I believe we can all agree that this works perfectly in favor of the film's art, considering how captivating the visuals can be. But the question is, why are we so drawn towards this quote-unquote surrealism in the first place? Simple, because it can beat your expectations. Just for a quick second here, try to remember one anime film that you watched in the past and think about how it looked like. the atmosphere, or the world itself, it's quite the sight, isn't it? But what happens if you create a film that walks away from those norms to embrace something entirely different? Well, you get this. A film that is so unconventional, so absurd, and yet you just can't help but feel something so gratifying when watching it, witnessing what happens when norms are thrown out for the sake of novelty. And I believe Kizumonogatari does not just execute on that front, but goes beyond what it's expected to do. Hence my love for this film and its art. Kizumonogatari is an anime that I believe has something very beautiful worth sharing, and I hope you get to experience it at least once. So if you guys enjoyed my video, please subscribe and give this video a like. And I'll see you when I see you. Ciao.